Today, we're going to answer some questions.
Yes.
So today we're going to talk about some of the top things to consider when you're buying your home. We'll get into lending options. We'll get into talking to realtors. We'll get into making lists and all that fun stuff.
Just the first steps. Like, what are the first things first that you need to do when you're considering buying a home?
Yeah, so let's go.
Yeah.
If this is your first time to the video and you want to know all about living in the Bryan College Station area, click subscribe below, tap that bell for notifications. My name's Jeff, along with Terry and David. We make up the Schellenberger team. We've helped people find their forever home, investment properties, or find that second home. All of our information's in the description box below, so don't hesitate to reach out to us to start that conversation about getting you here to the Bryan College Station area. And remember, we've helped people just like you find the right place at the right time, right here. All right.
Excited.
So, yeah.
Excited to talk about this today.
I think it's a big help. And we're just speaking from experience, from time working with buyers. And
I have to say, I've moved several times, and it wasn't until I became a realtor that I really understood this process. Mm-hmm. And I fully believe it is so critical for people to understand this process. So this is kind of the beginning of a series of videos we'll be putting out.
Right. It's not like going out and buying a car or going out and buying something else. This is probably one of your biggest purchases that you'll ever buy. So you want to make sure you have some things in order just to make the process easier, and so you don't get into the stress of having too much later.
Right.
So,
you do not want to be house poor.
Yeah.
That's miserable.
Right. So what's the first thing we're going to talk about?
We're going to be talking about just assessing your financial situation.
Yeah.
When you first decide, let's buy a house, what are the first things you need to think about? And it's your current financial situation. So we're going to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, if it's their first time to buy, they're used to renting. And with renting, you pay your rent and you pay your renter's insurance. When you buy a property, the mortgage has a little more tied into it. Mm-hmm. You've got your mortgage, you've got your insurance, you've got your property taxes.
Yes. Possibly an HOA. It's presented on a monthly basis whenever you're buying the house. Think, it's $100 a month, but you typically pay those one time. So you've got to be prepared for that one fee one time a year.
And you have to be prepared, now that you're the homeowner, all the maintenance, all of the extra costs fall on you.
Yes.
You can't pick up the phone and call the landlord. So those are just some of the things just to think about when it comes to financial planning. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you run into where you get down the road, you start talking to a lender and they give you what they feel like you would be approved for or be qualified for, but you don't take into account all the added costs.
Right.
So
this happened to Peter, my husband and I, when we were first married, and we had been renting, and we started looking for a house, and we found a house we liked, and I think this was even before there were official buyer reps. And so that's another topic we can get into another time. But we went, I think it might have even been the closing, but we just didn't know what we were doing. And we showed up and we saw these numbers and we were like, we can't afford this, but we had been approved for it, but we knew there was no way.
Right.
Man, that realtor was mad.
Yeah.
She was very upset with us. But we just had no one guiding us, explaining anything, but we realized when we saw those numbers, no way.
Well, and that's we'll get into this later, but that's why you want a good realtor.
Yes.
Because I put that back on the realtor.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have a realtor.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? It
go.
was just the one representing the listing agent.
Yeah.
So things have changed.
Yep.
For the better.
Yeah. So there is a difference between how much you qualify or are approved for and how much you can actually afford. So get your finances in order before you find that dream house when you're shopping online or something.
And what does that mean, get your finances in order? So obviously they're going to be looking at your debt to income ratio. Mm-hmm. And I think they don't want that greater than 34%.
Right.
And then, so you have to think about your credit card debt, and then you think about just the monthly expenses that you will anticipate having. So think of, taking care of your yard, pest control services, and things that you can do yourself, most certainly. But, we live in a day and age where we farm out a lot.
Right.
And so you have to take those things into account. And you had mentioned the other day how you close on your house, you have your monthly note, And you may think that's what it's going to be
forever.
in perpetuity. Not the case,
Right.
especially in Bryan College Station. The county is very good at tracking the rising costs of houses, and they raise those taxes. And so you, again, might be another topic for another video with how to address that, but it will not be that same number in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. So not only the property taxes, but also your insurance.
Yes, that's going up.
Yeah. So I saw a bell curve just the other day about it really was kind of around COVID, where insurance would kind of slowly come up for people, but since COVID, the insurance just has shot up.
I wonder what the tie is to COVID for anyway. I don't know.
So, but that's something to keep in mind. So if you see that you qualify for X amount a month for your mortgage, that's just for a year or
Right.
14 months or
Right.
whatever.
Expect that number to creep up over time.
Yep.
And so you want to check your credit score. The higher, the better. You know, there are some typical numbers that lenders want to see. For a conventional loan, you would want to shoot for at least 620, but ideally getting it over 7 is great. And so, and sometimes that takes some time for people to work on that, so get that credit score up. So build in some time to address that, because it really makes a difference in your interest rate.
Yeah.
And just the terms of the loan. So the higher your credit score, it can really be beneficial.
Yeah, it may be painful right now to do all of that, because you know you're eating beans and rice every day.
Right.
But laying that foundation, doing everything right now before you get into that process really will help.
So in saving for a down payment, you know, down payments can range anywhere from 3% to 20%. If you hit that 20% mark, then you do not have to pay PMI, which is mortgage insurance.
Right.
Well, it gets into some loan issues, but your goal shouldn't be just to put 3% down on your house. You need to try to shoot for higher than that. I thought that for a while, 10% years ago was pretty typical. So at least I would think, you know, at least 10. If you can get 20% down, that's obviously better.
Right. And we'll get into this later, but having the amount of money for a down payment, a lot of people say, well, that's all I have.
Right.
I've got the money for the 10% down, 20% down, but you're going to have to bring money to the table.
For closing costs.
Closing costs and a bunch of other stuff. So we'll get into that next.
And then the last thing is saving up an emergency fund for those unexpected repairs. Your AC goes out in August in Texas, you got a problem.
Yeah.
So
And if you're buying a home where the appliances stayed, those appliances don't last forever.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
All right, this next one's a good one.
Yes. So it's determining your budget. The first step is super easy. It's always the most fun step. You get that little mortgage calculator out and you start figuring out how much can I afford with a mortgage calculator.
There's so many tools out there now.
There are.
Where you can just really go online. Really, any of the house shopping apps and things like that have mortgage calculators, or you can just look up a mortgage calculator.
And that's a first step. Just it gives you a rough estimate. And I would suggest always building in a little cushion. Do not go with the top number it gives you. Back that down a little bit, at least, you know, a couple $100s a month, or, you know, maybe say a 10%.
Right.
And go with something like that, just so you're not pushing yourself to the edge. But that's the first step, is just grabbing the mortgage calculator online and figuring that out. And then the next one is to consider those taxes and all those other expenses that get built into your monthly payment.
Yeah, so when you're calculating that mortgage calculator, make sure it has spots for you to fill in, and you can do estimated stuff, but there's a lot of the stuff that pops up when you have, especially your first time home buyer. They may not have a lawnmower. They may not have
a what now?
A lawnmower.
Right.
They may not have the
washer and dryer.
General essentials. Keep that money aside.
Yes.
We've got the emergency fund, but we've also got funding for those type things.
Just the initial purchase of those appliances.
Yeah, and we'll get into it later, but we also tell people, do not start buying that stuff until...
Oh my gosh, wait, yes. So one comment I wanted to make about those things being added into your monthly payment, that's called escrow. And escrow is when you pay it in monthly and your lender is holding it for you to be paid out. I don't know, they pay the taxes once a year, I guess. And so that's what escrow is you pay this in with your payment, and then they make the lump sum payment for you annually.
Yeah, so that can cover your insurance, that can cover your property taxes.
Yes, and insurance, not the HOA. But basically property taxes and insurance is what's included in escrow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started to say something else. I can't remember what it was. Talking about.
Well, there's a difference between the pre-approval and pre-qualified.
Oh yeah,
We'll
so
get
then
into
getting
that.
so getting pre-qualified
Yeah.
with the lender is
Right.
the first thing and the easiest step.
Yeah, and nowadays, in this day and age, most sellers request that a buyer who comes to look at their home, especially if the people are living in it and things like that, want to see a pre-qualification letter.
Right.
That way they know these buyers are serious, they've gone through the initial steps with the lender, and they can qualify for it. And you especially run into that as the price of the home gets higher.
Right.
Because you don't want all the looky-loos coming in.
Yeah,
through.
if you're wanting to do that, you gotta wait for the open house.
And there's a difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval.
Huge difference.
Yeah, so pre-qualification is basically the lender gets your W-2, gets some of the
Just some basic information.
and does a quick calculation and say, okay, we think you would qualify for X.
Right.
Once you get into the pre-approval process is when they really start digging in, talking about your debt to income ratio.
Oh yeah, go ahead. That's
and
what.
all that fun stuff.
So that's what you started to say earlier was do not make any large purchases. Don't do anything that's going to negatively affect your debt to income ratio. And also don't move large amounts of cash in and out of an account. They're going to want to see
Right.
the history, like where did that come from? What was it for? Where did it go? You want to keep your financial life very stable and unconspicuous.
Yeah. Well,
Don't raise any red flags.
And even if it comes to, sometimes parents want to give a gift of X amount of money for these people who are buying their first home. Talk to your lender about all of that before you do any money transfers or anything like
Right.
that, because that will affect things. So
No large purchases, no big money transfers, and don't affect that debt to income ratio negatively.
yeah, and realtors always say, man, I could write a book. And
the
we've all run
stories.
into the different stories, and I've had that story where someone bought a car
Oh my gosh.
just before. But I've heard,
Take it back.
yeah, I've heard of it where they were just about ready to close. They were in the week, so they just decided to buy a refrigerator, and their debt to income ratio was that close
The fridge
that the fridge took them over.
killed the deal. The fridge
Yeah.
killed that deal.
So
Wow.
So really, I
We're
know
not
you're
kidding.
excited.
We're not kidding.
Yeah, I know you're excited. You want to get all this stuff done, but get the house bought first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. The next step,
Yep. Let's talk about it.
choosing a lender
Yeah.
and getting pre-approved.
So if you're already working with a realtor, you can talk to the realtor about, who are lenders that they've worked with and things like that. But make sure you shop lenders.
Yes.
And don't feel pressured to use one lender over another lender because you need to find that lender who you feel is working for your best interest.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things in life where you don't know what you don't know. And I think oftentimes for people buying a home, choosing a lender, you really fall into that category of you don't know what you don't know and you don't even know what to ask to educate yourself. And so actually we will be talking with the lender soon to discuss some of those questions. But I would say just generally, you want a lender who is going to present you with options. It is not a one size fits all. And if they're not talking to you about at least two different options, like this is what it would cost with this much down, very straightforward, and then the option of buying down points. If you don't at least hear that, it would be a little bit of a red flag to me. You should talk to more than one lender, definitely. But if something like that happened, if you were leaning towards not taking the time to do that, definitely do it.
Yeah. So we as realtors, we can answer some of the basics, but we are not lenders.
No. Or attorneys.
Or attorneys.
Yes.
And one of my first questions when I start talking with a new client is, have you talked to a lender? And I do not show houses until someone has at least started the conversation with the lender and gotten that pre-qualification. Because it's a waste of your time and it's a waste of my time if you want to go start seeing houses without even knowing what
just an idea.
An idea.
Of what, yeah.
And what the options are, like you said.
Right. So one quick thing about choosing a lender, we always recommend going with the local lender who's going to pick up the phone at 8:30 p.m. on Friday night.
Right.
Your big national lender, they are not going to be available over the weekend. And let me tell you, there are lots of deals that get done on the weekends and at night.
Yeah.
So you want someone local that you can, there's some accountability on their part when they're local, and they're much more available.
And they actually know the area. They know the different
Yes.
neighborhoods. They've done deals for homes with those neighborhoods, with those builders and things like that. So they can catch things that maybe we didn't even catch.
Right.
So,
or if there are issues with appraisals. There are a lot of reasons to choose a local lender. So we would definitely recommend always choosing a local lender. And then there are different types of loans you can get. I would say the two most common, go ahead.
Yeah, before we get into that, there are different types of lenders too.
Oh,
You've got a mortgage broker, and
Right.
you've also got the local bank. And
That's
the
very
mortgage
true.
broker, usually what they do is they will pre-qualify you, get you into your home, but then sell off that mortgage in bulk to another company. So, and a lot of the local banks, they hold those mortgages.
So local banks too.
Yeah.
I thought the big banks would sell them off too.
The big banks sell them off, and some
Yeah.
of the locals do, but they also do in-house lending where they will make the loan and they keep the loan. So not only are there different options for lending, but there are different types of lenders. So when you're interviewing the different lenders, maybe talk to a broker and talk to a bank and see the difference.
Right.
Yep.
That's a good point.
Yep.
The different types of loans, I would say for most people, the two most common is your conventional loan and then an FHA, the Federal Housing Authority loan. And then for vets, you have the VA loans. Those would be the three most common, those first two obviously more so. But so the FHA loans, those are geared toward first-time home buyers or people who don't have the best credit or can't come up with 10% down. So they make it easier to get a loan, but then in the long term, you have more expenses. Like you're gonna have PMI insurance for the duration of the loan unless you refinance it with a different lender. They have more constraints and a little, but it is easier to get the money through an FHA. The conventional loan, you put more money down. It's just a little bit more simple. And that PMI insurance, if you put 20% down, you don't have any at all.
Yeah, and also look at what type of loan it is. You have your fixed loans and you have your, what they call ARMs, adjustable rate loans. So the fixed would be you get a 6.5%
Interest rate.
and it stays that
Yeah,
way.
30-year,
Yeah.
30-year note.
The adjustable rate, you could get a lower one, but then it will adjust up higher to where your expenses for the mortgage will get
If the interest rates go up,
Yeah.
5 year, it's like a 5-year arm.
Yeah.
So you never know, but you hear more stories of them going up and it being a
Right.
problem than they're going down,
Right.
and someone
Yeah.
being like, woo.
Yeah, so a lot more people are more comfortable with a fixed mortgage.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll get a little bit of a break on the rate if you do a 15-year, but interest rates have been so low, people are like, why bother? I mean, if you can, just double, make your increase your payment so it feels, you're paying on it like it's a 15-year, but you're not tied to that in case there are months when you can't make the higher payment.
Yep.
So there are just lots of things to discuss. And so you want a lender who's going to walk through all of this with you and explain all of these options.
Right. You talked about the monthly payment being no more than 34%?
Oh, I think the debt to income ratio is
That's-
supposed
okay.
to not be more than that.
Yeah, and they also say just in general, your monthly payment should be no more than about 28% of your monthly gross income. So like Tara said, you don't want to become house poor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, all right, yeah. So know the pros and cons of the different lenders, the different types of loans, and the different loans.
Oh, and when you're shopping lenders, so you have a 30-day window to have your credit checked by various lenders, and it's not going to put a little, dent in your credit. It's that one time, the first time it, shows up that there's a credit check, but then you have a 30-day window after that, and you can go to 10 different lenders. They can all check your credit, pull your credit, and if it's in that 30-day window, it doesn't negatively affect you.
Because it's all in that one category.
Right.
Yep. Okay. So you said that we have a future video coming up.
Yes, we're going to be visiting with Melinda Hallerman, who is a local lender.
Local lender.
And she
So we'll dig
specializes
more.
in VA loans also.
Yeah.
She does. I did one of those with her, and
Yeah.
she actually showed up to the closing. She came to the closing.
Yeah.
It was
That's
great.
a good lender.
Yeah.
So
Next
now
up.
we're getting into some more fun stuff.
Yeah, the fun part.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do we got?
So, identifying your must-haves versus the things you would like in a home. And I'm sure at first the must-have side is very long, but then when reality sets in, it starts getting shorter.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you say. What I recommend to people is to really think about how you live. And that's hard sometimes because some of us can really get a strong idea in our head of what we want. And especially when it's something you've been pining for, but it's not how you live or what you have now, you've got to kind of really try to think about that and really think about how you live and what meets those needs.
Yeah, and some of those things include, if you have kids, the school district, the type of neighborhood that you want to be in, of course, the home and what the home has to offer for you.
How big of a yard you have.
Yeah.
Those big, beautiful yards, that's a lot to take care of.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take care of.
Age of home. Some people love the idea of living in an old home, but
Guilty as
once
charged,
they
but
get
we
in it-
cannot change a freaking light bulb between the two of us. I mean, it's hard to live in an older home and have no handyman skills.
Right.
You know?
So understand.
us. Yeah.
You know where you are in life and what
Yeah.
you want in life.
And the time that's going to take and the money it's going to take.
Right. Yeah. We're both kind of guilty of that. All my
Yeah.
homes have been older. So, but one thing I would say, just coming from, if I was your realtor, communicate with us. And we may ask you a lot of questions and it may become annoying, but what we're doing is we're trying to narrow down what are your priorities and how we can really help get you into the home that's going to be
The right home for you.
the right home for you.
It's like if you have pets and you know you need a backyard that's a decent size for them to run laps, then that's pretty non-negotiable.
Right.
So you got to think about that,
Yeah.
and it can be an issue. Some of these lots are getting smaller and smaller
Yeah.
and smaller.
And there are a lot of like-to-haves versus must-haves, and you need to be somewhat objective. I know
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's
Yeah,
hard.
It's hard, but be objective and really make that list of must-haves versus like-to-haves, and let us know. And I've gone through house tours with people and things like that, and they have not said a word.
Oh, that's hard.
And it's like, okay, what are you thinking? Things like that. And the questions we ask is just to help narrow things down because you don't want to see 100 houses. We don't want to show you 100 houses.
Some people, I think, do want to see it.
That's true. That's true. If you're serious, but
sometimes it's just the
Have
opposite.
those
People,
things.
they walk into every house and they get excited about every house, and that's
Yeah.
just as confusing.
well, that's true. There is no perfect house, but every house doesn't fit, even though you fall in love with every house.
Right.
So
Like if you have to have a study, know that.
Right.
That you have to. One time I had a listing and there was a study, but there were no windows. And I really thought these people were going to buy this house. But then the husband came back and said, I cannot spend that much of my time in a room with no windows.
Right.
And I thought, oh, this is not their house because you cannot change that with this house.
Well, and that's true. And when you're looking at houses, try and see them during the day and at night.
Right. That's very important. Go during the day and at night. So important because
Understand the lighting.
This is
and
your
things
story.
like that. Yeah. So understand the amount of natural daylight that comes in. And if you're going there in the evening or something like that, you may not notice that because all the lights are on and things like that. But then you get back in the house during the day and it's like, man, this place is dark.
And also, and you can do this on your own. Let's say you find a couple of houses you're really interested in, but driving by at different times of the day or on the weekend to see what kind of traffic,
Check
how
out
many
the
cars are
neighborhood.
parked on the street, if they're allowed to park on the street. I mean, most places they are. Yeah, how congested does the street get?
Yeah.
What's the neighborhood like?
Yeah. So make that list. Have your must-haves versus your like-to-haves. Communicate with your realtor. We're here to help. We are your fiduciary. We're here to not only do all the negotiations, get you the best deal, but also help you find what really fits you best.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So while we would love to work with every single one of you, our recommendation is to interview different real estate agents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's no big secret. There are a lot of real estate agents. The barrier to entry is not very difficult, but the quality of real estate agents varies a lot, and you want to have a good real estate agent.
Yeah, so different agents have different experience, but they also have different focuses. Where some agents focus on residential.
That is very true.
Some commercial, some
rental.
Investing.
Yeah, investing.
Rental.
Land, like if you're wanting a place out in the country with a large parcel of land.
Yeah. So talk to a realtor, get to know that realtor, understand their personality. Is this someone that can work with you? And some people need someone who's more of a nurturer. Some people need someone who's more black and white.
Yeah, just more transactional.
So do some interviews, and what we have is, and what we recommend is, we'll set up a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And we like to get to know you just as much as you like to get to know us.
Yeah, it is a two-way street because it's a relationship, and it's someone that you spend a lot of time with in a condensed amount of time. You spend a lot of time with your realtor, and you want that to be a pleasant experience. You don't want to dread talking to your realtor. You don't want your realtor to dread talking to you. We do have a fiduciary duty to do what's best for our clients. And on paper, you're like, oh yeah, check. But then when you're doing the job, you kind of have to remind yourself sometimes, okay, I really have to think, because we're all human, I've got to do what is absolutely best for this person. And so obviously, if the relationship is amicable and you work well together, that intuitively is going to be much easier to do.
Right.
Just human nature.
Yeah. So what are some of the questions to ask a realtor? How long have you been in the business? How well do you know the neighborhoods that I'm interested in? What type of lenders have you worked with in the past? Just so you understand where this realtor is coming from, what their experience is, and are they going to be a good fit for you?
Right. And funny story, a friend of mine living in a different town said that they had this one realtor when they were when they were selling their home, they were going to downsize. So they had this fabulous realtor when they sold this big house on a big piece of property. But then when they hired her to help them buy a smaller home, she said it wasn't the same experience. Like she wasn't as excited, and and I thought, that's too bad. It just that's too bad.
Well, and there are some realtors that are specialized in listing, and there are some that specialize in buying, and there are some that do both. And
we do both.
We do both. So, and we work with investors, we work with a variety of different people, just because the town we're in, you kind of need to be that jack of all trades.
Right.
So find the experienced realtor that will walk you through the process, that will help you through, that will ask the questions, that will be the coach sometimes, but also really just kind of be transparent and be your fiduciary.
Right. Because this is, it's an emotional process for people. And it is one of the biggest purchases they make. It's a big deal.
Yeah, sometimes I say I'm part psychologist.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah.
One of my best friends is in commercial real estate, and so we talk about how different they are from one another.
Yeah. So objectivity is important when it becomes emotional.
Yeah.
So we've talked to lenders. We've talked to realtors. We've done our pre-work in getting our finances in order.
So you know the range of the price of homes to be looking at.
Yep. We've made our objective list of must-have versus like-to-have, because there is no perfect home. What's the next step?
Those Sunday afternoon open houses and start house hunting.
Yes, house hunting. And that's where it gets exciting.
It's fun.
Yeah. So what are your recommendations?
Well, let me look here because I already forgot. I've got to put on my glasses.
So
Seriously, attending open houses, scheduling appointments with your realtor to go look at homes, and maybe taking some notes and keeping track of what you may have really liked or something that may have really turned you off about a particular home, in case it's a feature that will be easily identified in future homes.
Yeah.
And this is where it comes in. It's very important to be pre-qualified, because oftentimes you come across the perfect house. Well, it just happens to be the perfect house for a lot of other people too. And so for you to be able to make an offer quickly is important. We're in a market now that houses are being reduced and they're sitting on the market a long time, but just the other day, a house came on the market. My client said, hey, I'd like to go see this house. While we're trying to figure out her schedule and when she can do that, it's gone.
Yeah.
It was on the market for a day.
Right.
Because it was a great house.
Yeah. And while you may have things narrowed down to like a specific area, neighborhood, even type of house, look at something that may not even be what you think, because you could.
It might surprise yourself.
Yeah.
You might surprise yourself.
Yeah.
If it's what you like.
Yeah. And communicate. I know I've said this, but communicate with your realtor. As you go through these homes, talk about the home, talk about what you like, talk about what you don't. Help us help you. And
figure out like where you're working, where the kids are in school, if you have kiddos, where the house is located, and just that commute time, how long it's going to take you to get to places you need to be every day.
Know how long you're going to be in this house.
That's a good point too.
Yeah, because some people buy a house with the intention of being in it for 3 to 5 years. Some people buy the house with the intention of, you're going to drag me out of this house on a gurney. Talk to your realtor, because there could be differences when it comes to all of the financing. Is this the right house for you if you're only going to be in it for a year to 2 years?
Right.
All those different things.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yep.
And what's happening in the neighborhood? I mean, there are neighborhoods here that they're starting to redo the homes, and there's just a lot of factors that go into it.
Yep.
All right.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. If you're enjoying this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. It all helps.
Yeah, let us know what you think. All right, so we hope that today's video has helped you understand how to start the home search process at the very beginning. And then we'll be meeting with the lender soon and putting out that video to give you more details about what you ask lenders and that relationship.
Yeah, so interview people.
Yes.
Get comfortable with the process.
Yes.
Get your
finances
homework done.
Yeah, with your finances, get that lined out. So you need to know. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to know. You need to know.
Yeah, and set up that Zoom call. We are happy to answer any questions that you have. Hopefully we've covered a lot of the questions that you had, but set up that Zoom
even
call.
Questions about this part of it. Not the realtor questions, but if you have questions about the beginning stage, we'd be happy to talk to you about that.
Exactly. Yeah. And hey, we've helped people just like you find the right place at the right time.
Right here.
Right here.